I think everybody's working from home on this one, huh?
A lot of them working remotely anyway.
Well, the ones that are on.
Printed out the minutes and now I don't have them.
So Leonard and Strathman. Leonard was there, but he left. Strathman was there too, wasn't he? Oh, I don't know.
Okay. Okay. I think I'm adjusted. The time is well past our time for our meeting.
Hey,
Ms. Bates is back. Are you attending?
he's not staying.
Yes, I am.
Oh,
About that. Okay. My name's Chris Caius. I'm chairman of the Riverboat Committee. Feedback. Okay. All right. Okay. My name's Chris Caius. I'm chairman of the Riverboat Committee. I'm calling this meeting to order Thursday, July 22nd, 2021 at 11 a.m. Well, I guess we're past that. 11:43 a.m. And Mr. Dahl, you're online.
Yes,
Can I have you do roll call, please?
sure. Caius,
Caius present.
Berman,
Berman here. Oh,
Ford. Leonard,
Leonard here.
Strathman,
Strathman here.
Okay, we have a quorum. That's great. Thank you. Then we'll do the low-hanging fruit, approval of minutes from the July 8th, 2021 meeting. Is there a motion?
so moved, Berman.
Berman moved.
Leonard second.
Any changes? Roll call, please.
Caius,
Caius, yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Ford. Yes. Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Strathman.
Strathman, yes.
Minutes are approved. Okay, item number 4, consideration of the fiscal year 2022 departmental applications. And you're online, Mr. Berger?
Yes, I am. Good morning, everybody. Just a reminder, you did receive applications from 7 Kane County offices and departments for a total of 14 different programs that have historically been supported, at least in part, by Riverboat proceeds. The total new funding requested by the departments was $3.127 million. You'll recall that as of a couple of weeks ago, we distributed a spreadsheet to each of you. Thank you to each and every member of the committee for completing that spreadsheet, giving us your recommendations for how you individually would like to see funding allocated for these programs. My colleague Chris Dahl has averaged those figures that you gave us, and this morning we are distributing to you a copy of the results of that analysis. Blair Blair, if you would go to page 2 of the agenda packet, then I think our screen will, I'm sorry, make that page 3, sorry. Okay, if you don't mind, I can share my screen. We're not getting the spreadsheet on that we want to show to everybody. And I can be happy to share my screen with the group. Okay, I believe everybody should be seeing the results of the average figures. You can see in the blue shaded columns, you can see the requested amounts. And then in the green shaded columns, you can see the average figures that you gave us collectively. You can see there's a total collective average of $262,816 in recommended use of cash on hand. That would be old funding provided to the departments in earlier fiscal years. Then in the center column, you can see a total amount of $2.135 million in collective recommendations for new funding, for a total of $2.398 million for fiscal year 2022. The average figures here are intended to give you the basis of a discussion and deliberation. Obviously, these are not binding, but they are brought to you for your consideration and hopefully give you a good jumping off spot for your deliberations regarding how you'd like to allocate funding for 2022.
And he passes it back. That's it for you, Mr. Berger, for right now?
That is the conclusion of our presentation to you. Again, we're looking for you to deliberate over these figures and determine the final allocations that you'd like to approve or recommend to the full county board for approval, I should say.
Okay. Now, did the members of the committee, is this the first time they're seeing it?
I believe Chris Dahl did distribute this to everybody yesterday by email.
Yesterday, so it's on pretty short notice, so.
Correct.
May take some digesting here. As chairman, I'd like to make a couple of comments. I'd passed out the explanation of differences sheet to everyone. You'd already gotten a copy of this, and I made a couple of highlights on it just to make a couple of points. Can you pull up sheet A for me, Blair? And show that.
I will stop sharing my screen so that Blair
Okay.
can do that.
Okay, this is stuff that was provided. There we go. A, up in the upper right-hand corner, it's a vertical one. It's the one with the, it's the one with the red print on it. And what it does is it just compares last year's to this year's in outstanding things and makes a couple notes on, a note on each one of the applicants' expense increases or decreases. I think the two notes that I'd like to make are on page number 2 of that sheet. No, you had it there with I think it was the first one. It should be A. That's something else. They should be A, B, C, D. I tried to make it simple so I could find them. I always save them and I can't find them. That's the one there. Can you go to page 2 on that? You can see that those on the page 1, everything in red has had first of all, is an increase in their ask from last year. So, except for, you'll note that funds 45715 is a decrease, as well as Fund 650 at the bottom of page 2. Those are both environmental, and there were a couple others that really didn't have much increase, which were on that, they're the last ones. They're 7,000, 6,000 for fund, 7,000 for 390, and for 405, 732, it was 6,000. So they were not asking for a large increase. So, which indicates to me that these asks, and having talked with, these are environmental things, at least the environmental ones, I talked with Jody about it, that they have built in they've already accepted that we have a declining, that's one of the things, we have a declining revenue source. And I think we should consider that they've built in they've been very polite in building in a declining ask as well. So that these others that may be asking for much more, I think that we should consider in relative terms that these funds have been not increased to a significant extent or decreased for us. So the ask maybe is more appropriate, at least for our declining funds, or more related to our declining funds. And then secondly, and then you can, secondly, in the second page there, the yellow indicates that there is a new criminal investigator, and I typed in there one new position, highlighted it in red, one criminal investigator for Fund 230. And in the past, this committee has traditionally taken into account that we don't want to, or the members of the committee have highlighted increases in positions and avoided funding new positions on the premise that with the declining amount that we have, we don't want to start a new position that we would be then obligated, or the county be obligated to support in years to come without a really good revenue source, it's like the general fund. And then that was what I had just on those. Are there any comments about those? And I'm bringing these up just to make sure that I understand them as correct. So if, I know Cheryl, you're online, and Bill, are there any comments about those points?
Mr. Chairman, this is Leonard. Could I make a statement?
Sure, absolutely.
First of all, I'd like to say I agree with your synopsis on this, Mr. Chairman. I do believe that we should not be in a position where we're helping to hire new people or handling standard operational expenses for a couple of reasons. As you stated, they might become dependent on this, and with the amounts of monies we receive each year going down, that would not be a good scenario to be in. And the requests have been much greater. I see that the combined totals for everyone using cash on hand and Riverboat funds, the total recommendation as the committee as a whole was $2 million, roughly $400,000. I had come up with about $2 million, but I'm more than happy to agree with the $2 million if the rest of the committee feels that's proper. I think everybody did a great job on this, and I think we're realizing that we only have so much money available. So I would support the recommendation that we received from the committee as a whole, recommending $2,398,220.
Thank you, Mr. Leonard. Rather than go right to the end and vote on this average, I would like to discuss a few more points and maybe make some adjustments or allow for adjustments if that's okay with the committee, rather than, I think we should discuss this and make sure that we're on good footing for the decisions we make. So if you don't mind, I'll put that comment, and we'll keep that comment in mind, and then we'll move forward for a little more discussion. We'll dig a little deeper on some of these, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. Mr. Berman, did you have a comment, at least on sheet number 1?
Well, yes,
Okay.
it's obviously my first time in going through this, but
Everybody but Bill.
I think the idea in my mind is that we have a certain amount of money that's been given to us by provided by us for the Riverboat Fund. And we have a number of requests that our departments feel that are very significant in their operation. And when we have enough money coming in to cover their requests, I don't know why we don't cover those requests as they're submitted, rather than parse it out. We're $991,000 less than what has been requested or what we have available as to what we arbitrarily say we're going to give away. Seems to me that if the funds come in, we should allocate those funds based on the requests of the departments.
Thank you. Mr. Berger, we had a discussion earlier this week or last week about reserves. Maybe you can review how much reserve we have. The total reserve was something like 3.3 million, and why we need to keep a reserve on hand at the end of our budgeting, just for the smooth operation of the Riverboat Committee.
Yes, at your last meeting, we had provided you a projection of the unobligated year-end fund balance, and that would be for November 30th of this year, the last day of our current fiscal year. And that projection totaled 5.25 million, which is a combination of a cash balance or reserve, as it's been referred to, of 3.305 million, along with the revenue that we received recently from the casino, which is the basis of our budget for next year, which is 1.946 million. So per county policy, we are required to maintain a positive cash balance in this fund. The recommendations, the average recommendation that you all have come up with would require us to use a portion of the reserve, but it would not deplete it, obviously. So the Riverboat Fund would remain in positive cash balance.
Well, beyond the cash balance, and I don't want to try and explain what it is you told me, but that we do have to have a reserve so that we have the money available to pay out at the end of the year or the beginning of the year. Is that correct? We don't want to be.
Yeah, so from a cash management perspective, we've deducted from the fund balance all of the obligations that you've authorized us to make, specifically to nonprofits and units of local government for those external projects. And then to answer your question, when it comes to these internal projects proposed by the different departments, typically what the finance department does is they transfer these amounts on the first business day of the new fiscal year. So what that means is that if you were to approve the average recommendations that you all have come up with, $2.135 million would be transferred out of our fund into the individual departments' special revenue funds to support their programs. So they would get that deposit on the first business day of the year and draw it down throughout the year.
So, and that would still leave us 3 million? Is that with 5 minus 2 is 3?
Correct.
So approximately 3 million for carryover,
Correct.
which would be sufficient. It wouldn't put us in any kind of jeopardy or near jeopardy.
No, not for the year ahead.
I don't understand the jeopardy. I'm sorry, Berman. What are we talking about this? Why do we need $2 million or $3 million?
We're just explaining that when it comes to internal projects, typically these awards are made by the county board, and then the finance department transfers funds on the first business day of the new fiscal year. So these funds literally leave the Riverboat Fund in December and go into the individual departments' special revenue funds.
And so we're well above that.
Correct.
I guess my question is, why do we need a reserve? I mean, what's the reason for our reserve? If we've got requested, what is the reserve for?
So historically, and again, I'm referring to some of the recent fiscal years, the county board has desired to spend more money than we've received from the casino. And so fortunately, we have a cash fund balance because there are many years where we've received more Riverboat funds than have been approved for expenditures. So we're fortunate to have a reserve because that allows you as a board to spend more money than you're receiving from the casino in any given year.
But we could spend it all this year as long as we didn't run into zero.
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, this is Leonard. Could I make a statement?
Yes, Mr. Leonard?
Mr. Berman, you know, I understand your point. I respectfully disagree with that. I think the purpose of this Victoria Riverboat Fund is to help not only external but internal needs in our county, and not just for 1 year, but for a number of years. And with revenues going down drastically, I think they went down about 50% over the last year or two. We can't give the same amounts that we gave before. So we're taking out of our reserve or our cash reserve fund. And if the funds continue to go down, we'll have to take out more and more every year. And I think this way, at least we have the ability to help in some way a number of internal departments and external needs over maybe the next 3 to 5 years. If we spend all of the reserve now and our revenues go down next year, we will have maybe a third of what we had this year to spend. So I think we're just looking a little bit more long-term, maybe 3 to 5 years to keep this going.
My question then is, what makes next year's requests more important than this year's request?
Good point.
There's no
Why
priority
would we
over.
want to put money away for next year when I got a request this year for those funds that we have, at least the funds that we have coming in?
Well, I think we are spending all the funds that are coming in this year, plus taking some out of the reserve. And I don't think there's a priority 1 year over another. We're just saying we would like to be able to continue to help all these funds over a period of years. And if we deplete our reserve too much, we're not going to have the ability to do that for very much longer.
I don't know. It just seems to me that if we have requests for funds and we have the funds, then we should honor those requests. I don't know how next year's request is going to be any better or different than this year's request, or how does this differ from last year's request that we didn't honor, or is it made up of what we didn't honor last year that's added to this year's request? So I don't know. I think if we have the funds, we should expend those funds for the requests that we have currently.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Deborah.
Well, you're not the chairman, Mr. Leonard. Go ahead,
Excuse
Deborah.
me.
and Mr. Chairman, I'm not on the committee. I just wondered if I could make a comment.
Certainly.
Thank you. We have traditionally wanted to be able to give some money to throughout Kane County community for people who ask for riverboat funds. And I think that the percentages have been about maybe a third to outside requests and then 2/3 to internal requests, because our departments have come to depend on this money. And as we saw the revenues fall off, some would say it was because people couldn't smoke anymore, or the little gaming shops showed up and It kept people went to their nearby gaming shops and their video gaming shops instead of going to the Riverboat Casino for a big weekend out and spending money. As we saw those funds going down, we were saying both to the outside community and to our own departments, be aware these monies are going down and you're going to need to find other ways to fund the things that you want to do, especially internally. So in the last few years, we've tried to stay as close as we could to the money coming in and spending that so that everyone would get used to the idea that that the funds were going down and that the bottomless pit was no longer bottomless. So as Mr. Leonard has said, if we want to be able to keep doing this for a few more years, we need to be careful how we spend our reserves and try and stay on budget with whatever comes in. We can certainly go ahead and spend, but if we dip into the reserves, then we're limiting our ability to do this in the future.
Which is limited by the amount of money we're getting in, which is decreasing every year. At some point, we'll have to make a decision of which is going to be more valuable in any of these programs. I went through some of the data here and try to get an idea, and maybe you can, as a committee, can help me analyze this and understand it as some of the things as far as the characteristics of each one of the applicants and how they fit into their total ask. We have enough money this year. There is a question whether how much we carry over to how long we want it to last. We just shoot it all and then next year we're out without, or we want to carry some in a distance. Can you pull up sheet number B, Blair? There's a B in the upper right-hand corner. I just took what the ask was this year and created another column. The second column from the left is I called categories. Part of the traditional logic for dispersing the Riverboat money was that it would go to the 3 E's: education, environment, economy, and well, that's three E's: education, environment, or economy. I had in our externals, as you guys were aware, the staff provided a really good breakdown of how appropriate the application was and whether it qualified for the 3 E's and a number of other factors. I just created this column to kind of try and identify which ones of the applications applied to our basic tenets. If that's what we want to do as a committee, is carry on and put the emphasis on education, environment, and economy. I also include what I determine to be need, and that's where I want your input on this to make sure that we all understand where we're giving the money and for the where we're allocating the money and the reasons we're allocating it to that one. So if we go down that sheet, fund number 120 was reimbursement. It's definitely education, tuition reimbursement. State's attorney, if you read the application, they say that there's, for the Title IV, they list education, some education, and a need for an immediate need for the funding. The drug prosecution was not education. It didn't qualify for any of the 3 E's, as did 222 that I could read anyway. And if you guys have any more input from the applications, and maybe I missed something, I'd be happy to, because I'm just trying to understand this. If we do have to determine which ones fit the need or fit the categories we want to apply as a committee, because we can do it any way we want to, then I want to understand the basic reasons we're doing it. 223, domestic violence, they had an education component as well as an immediate need. State's attorney, 230, which was the Child Advocacy Center, was I don't believe had any education component. just the need. The health department asked Kane Cares, qualified for all three of those, or two of the three, I guess, education, the economy, because each dollar that's invested is worth $5 eventually to the county in removing individuals from county assistance and children from problematic situations to save the county on a 1-to-5 ratio. And of course, immediate need, we do have that, especially during the pandemic. Information technology was education, and immediate need for the web services educational prospect or educational aspect of the website, because we're providing money for the web technical services. Development was economics, and then water resources was both. Both water resources were education and environment were listed. Yes, I think I'll allow it. Go ahead, Ms.
Please.
Bates.
May I please? So for water resources, I believe that requires a immediate need arrow on that, because those are mandated to help us watch our water resources. So those need carrots greater than
A right arrow, you're
right
talking
arrow.
about? Yeah,
Yes, for both of those.
for immediate need. Okay, development was of economic development, and the County Board Farmland Protection was both economic development, as listed as supporting the agricultural economy, as well as environment, locking the land into a more environmentally friendly, hopefully, situation. And then environment management, the recycling program is definitely environment, and I guess an immediate need on that one too. Thanks, Mavis Faith. So that was my thinking. If just to analyze these little, just how important and what it is, the reasons I think we need to keep in mind, if we want to limit this, why we're limiting them, or why we're allowing or providing the funding along the lines of the analysis that our staff provided us during the external grants, which I thought were very valuable. So this was just my little shorthand, and hopefully it's of value to the committee as well. And are there other comments about this that would help enlighten me and the other members of the committee? That would be a question for State's Attorney Mosser.
Thank you. So I obviously have several things that are up there for the Riverboat, and I wanted to directly respond to the comment that they don't have educational as a portion of what we're asking for in all of these. So the first thing that I would like to say is that we are mandated by law to do all of what we do at the State's Attorney's Office. So in this, Title IV is actually our child support division. So within that, we obviously work for people to obtain child support payments from the parent who doesn't have the child on a full-time basis. Included in that is an educational portion of it, because as we are going through this, when we are walking these parents through this process, there's more to it than us filing a petition.
And that one is listed, if you'll see
Okay.
on the thing, as educational as well.
Fantastic. So if I can go to the drug prosecution portion.
That one, oh, yes, go ahead.
So in the drug prosecution portion, in addition to actually prosecuting these cases, we go out not only to the police departments, but also into the community, so that we can educate not only the officers on the proper way to do any type of criminal investigation, but also the community. Portions of our educational part will talk to community members about the identification of addiction issues, what to do with that, referral to services. We're working really hard in another portion of it that's tangentially going to go along with this, where we're trying to get our police officers to divert people through a pre-arrest diversion program, which means they're not going through our criminal justice system. But within this, we provide the training for our community and education for our community, because this addiction issue affects so many more people than we know. So our prosecutors in this routinely go out into the community to talk about the different programs that we have, how to get resources, how to recognize addiction issues, and where to refer individuals.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think the next one was the victim coordinator services.
Yes.
In the victim coordinator services, this has two portions of what we work with. One is actual response to victims in cases, but the other portion is to a diversionary program that we have where we work with domestic violence offenders. These offenders are referred to treatment. We provide a lot of information to victims about what to do in the situation that they're in, including safety planning, where to go for housing, where to go for needs that they have. We go into the community and have conducted regular presentations at Mutual Ground, which is our domestic violence shelter in the south end of the county, the Crisis Center, which is our domestic violence center in the north end of the county, along with Waubonsie Community College. Throughout all of these presentations, we are talking about domestic violence awareness, what the criminal justice system does, and how a victim can protect themselves, along with how in an abusive situation, an abuser can get treatment to try to stop the cycle of violence.
All educational.
All education. And all free of charge to the county.
Okay. All free of charge?
To the people who are asking it for us.
Oh, I
So
see.
when the
Okay.
Community Crisis Center needs us to come talk about something, we go.
You're going to not ask us for money. It's free.
Well,
Not that, I get it. Okay,
yes,
sorry.
you've known me long enough now to know that that's not me.
Yeah, right. Okay.
The next one is the Domestic Violence Division, and that works hand in hand with the Victim Services one.
That's listed as educational in the.
Wonderful, thank
And
you.
then Child Advocacy Center.
So the Child Advocacy Center, is that listed as education or not?
No, it's not.
Not, okay.
Well, and this is me reading through this.
Yes.
So I'm not a lawyer, so I don't parse things as finely as some people, but
It just makes you much smarter than me.
Yeah,
So
right.
with the Child Advocacy Center, as you know, as in I have discussed this before, our abuse and neglect cases have gone up 82% since the year before. And a lot of that is due to COVID. Our Child Advocacy Center prosecutes the cases of sexual violence to children who are under the age of 13 years of age, and physical violence that's more than just what a simple battery essentially would be. Within all of that, we have to help and go out in the communities to make sure that people understand the recognition of abusive situations. As you know, we have Marcy's Law, which mandates schools to be able to talk to their kids about abuse, and that's where we see a lot of that happen. We partner with the organizations that do that to go out to talk about signs of abuse, how to report, what the court system does, and how essentially we are involved with the Abuse and Neglect and the Child Advocacy Center to protect the children in this case. This one, by far and away, has seen an increase in cases, much like abuse and neglect has, because the pandemic created this situation where people were in their homes, oftentimes stuck with abusive individuals, and in these cases, people who took advantage of the children who were not in school and perpetrated on them, causing an increase in our cases.
thank you.
Thank you.
So, right from the state's attorney, education is involved in those. Any other comments on any of these categories? Actually, I'll ask the audience as well if they, or the applicants, if there's something I'm missing on the education versus environment. Just so we have a stronger idea of what it is we're taking into account to distribute this money, the reasons. Okay. I think at this point, just so that we can agree on, actually, the really low hanging fruit, which is account number 120, human resources, and account number 430, or no, account number 407, Development, Kane County. Those two are asking for funds that are rolled over, requested to use cash on hand, and are not asking for any new funds. So I'm just going to ask if there's any reason that we shouldn't allow the money to be rolled over and put into the budget for expenditure during this year if they see fit. Maybe
Mr.
development
Chairman,
program.
Strathman here.
Yes, Ms. Strathman.
I just have a quick question about this. In the rollover, the requested use of cash on hand is approximately, well, say $10,000 less. What happens to that $10,000 that is not accounted for in the unobligated fund balance and the requested use of cash on hand?
Mr. Berger?
So if I understand the question correctly, you're asking about what happens to funds that are in a special revenue fund but are not authorized in the annual budget for expenditure. And the answer to that question would be that those funds remain in the fund. They are not authorized for spending in the new fiscal year, and they just simply remain in the possession of the fund and are up for consideration by you and the board in future fiscal years. So a fund balance is not the same thing as a budget approval. I can have
Okay.
funds in a budget, but if you don't approve the expenditure of those funds, they simply must remain in the fund.
Okay, thank you. That I wasn't quite sure of the difference there, but that explains it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question too. I guess hypothetically, that maybe never would happen, but just on the other end of that, if they had this 20,000 or 10,000 or 50,000 carried over year after year after year and never spent it, would the board be allowed to remove that and then appropriate it to some other fund?
You do have that capability. That is
Okay.
within your purview.
Just hypothetically.
Correct.
But the question I'm asking is 120, just to get these completely out of the way so this question doesn't come up again, and 407, they have their own money without even discussing whether they're appropriate or not. Do we just allow that to roll over, or do you want to dig into that?
But I would make the motion that we,
I don't think we need a motion, but just
Okay.
sort of a consensus that we'll do
I
that.
would-
Unless
I
somebody,
would- I
if
would
somebody
start-
objects to it, then,
yeah,
because I think we want to come up on a,
I don't reject to what's being presented to us for 120 and 407.
any other comments from other board members online? Just so those questions don't come up again about those two. So, gosh, we're almost halfway there.
Mr. Chairman,
Got a
may I
ways
ask
to
a
go.
question?
Oh, yes, Ms. Bates.
Um,
Or there's no other comment from anybody on the committee. Ms. Bates?
So when the state's attorney brings these very important and mandated programs to the Riverboat Fund, it seems to me that those would, why are they on the Riverboat Fund instead of on the general budget when the Riverboat funds are decreasing and these are such important programs? And
I'll ask Ms. Mosser.
I don't know. That would
State's Attorney Mosser?
It's our understanding that that's historically how it has happened, just because the Riverboat and the requirements that they have would give to funds such as those, which is why we traditionally qualified for it. I agree with you, Ms. Bates, that these are important things that we have to do, and I would rather them be guaranteed every year in a general fund as opposed to a situation like that. But I think it's because we fit the qualifications that it falls in there. It's not a very good answer, I know.
okay, that's not a, but it is, it's an explanation, maybe not a reason. Okay.
Yes.
thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Ford?
thank you. I think it's just been a practice budget-wise that when you have special projects, that in both the county and Aurora, that they've been used, the Riverboat funds have been used to cover special projects. It's just been a financial way of handling.
Expediency?
Well,
We got
special
the money,
projects.
especially since we
Right,
had the
right.
money.
So the idea of being able to do special projects came from the fact that there was funds available through the riverboats.
And I'd say domestic violence is not a very special project.
Yeah, I mean, that's how they're labeled as special projects. So that's how it came about. I'm not saying that's the way to do it. I'm saying how it came about.
That's why the little right-hand arrow, it says need, immediate need. You know, that's, I think that's what the, a board and the county board and the committee have seen as a need, as State's Attorney Mosser says, that is definitely worthwhile, whether it comes from here or somewhere else.
And I could probably say that saving our water resources are also as important. So,
I think that there isn't any one of them that isn't valuable, extremely valuable, really. And I don't know that we have to make the decisions this year on whether we decline somebody, but the way it's going, I think, Mr. Berger, you could maybe enlighten me. We've had actually, I'm going to move on to the next page here, and then I'll ask you, Scott. On page C here, can you pull that up, Blair? Table C. I know this is like a 2-pager, just because there's so, I don't think you'll get them all in there and everybody be able to read them. It's really small print. I apologize. What I did was try to get a table here. The first square shows that that's what we budgeted, what the committee, I said we, what the committee budgeted per year. If you go item, line, or column B, C, and D, 2017, 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22. If you just make the whole sheet larger, it'll probably, you won't have to do that, but okay, that's fine. If you go up in the upper left-hand corner up there, you can see that it was 2.6, 2.7, 3.3, 4.2, down to 1.9, and then 1.4. That's, and I put the 1.4 in there. Mr. Berger, that is the amount approximately that we had to dispense without dipping into the reserves?
Correct. We gave you a draft budget at your last meeting, and it was a rather austere budget based solely on the most recent deposit of Riverboat funds from the casino. That amount was 1.9 million, and based on our budgeting principles that the committee has followed for several years, that provided $1.473 million for internal projects.
Okay, and given what we've, are getting from the boat this year, or actually, we got from, maybe you can explain it, what's going to happen next year in the next round of, are we already predetermined to have less money for our 2023 budget right now?
No, we don't know that. So what happens is the fiscal year for the Riverboat Casino is basically the calendar year. And so at the end of each calendar year, their finances are audited, and it's determined that 7.5% of their net operating income is transferred to Kane County. That typically happens in late April. So we don't know what amount the county will receive in April of 2022. So our budgeting principles call for us to use our most recent known allocation of funds as the basis for our next fiscal year budget. And so in April of this year, Kane County received $1,946,000. And so that revenue amount is basically considered as a deposit that funds your new fiscal year budget. So we use that figure as the basis for our draft budget for the new fiscal year. And then in the event the county board wants to spend more than that amount, we determine whether or not there's a fund balance that can be drawn down. So based on the average figures that you guys have come up with, our draft budget would call for a drawdown of over $800,000 from our fund balance. Does that answer your question?
I believe so. So we don't know what last year, do those figures look right for the amount that was budgeted and distributed in previous years, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21? I'm sorry, I finished these kind of late. at night, so I didn't figure you wanted to answer those questions in the middle of the night.
I would have to go back and look at our records to see how that shapes up.
Okay.
My
pretty sure-
records indicate that in fiscal year 2021, which is the current fiscal year, we transferred $2.1 million out of the Riverboat Fund into the department's special revenue funds.
Oh,
Okay, instead of 1.9.
Correct.
Okay. So I may have some of those figures incorrect. And I apologize if that's the case. I believe that up to that point, you can see that in the A, B, C, and D, you can see what happened to the riverboat funds over the last 5 years. As the idea behind this table is that it was 17, it was 83% of the previous year. 18, it was 104, it went up just slightly. 19, it went up more. 20, it went up a little bit more, and then it really dropped off in 2021. It's only 46%. What I did was I took the amount that we reimbursed each of the accounts. You see the accounts in the second column: tuition reimbursement, Title IV, drug prosecution, victim coordinator, domestic violence, and child advocacy. I took the percentage of, I divided the amount that was allotted to each of those applicants and divided it by the amount in the first column, which meant that in, let's say, tuition reimbursement was 1.63% of the overall budget that we allocated that year. The next year, the 38,000 was 1.3%, 1.5%, 1.1%, and then last year, 2021, it was so low that even though it was the same amount, $50,000, it was 2.5%, just because we had half as much money. And if you go down each one of these columns, you can see just exactly how much of a percentage that we applied to each one of these, or gave to each one of these, allotted each one of these as compared to our total amount of allotment. And you'll see that in like the victim coordinator 222, you can see that the amount has was 1%, that's 1%, 5%, 3%, 6%. And this year there was asking $163,000, which is 11%. They're asking for about the same amount of money, but we have half as much. So it's 11% of the budget. If we were to apply the average of those 5 years in percentage of average percentage, if we're still in column 222, victim coordinator, that 3.74% is the amount of budget that we had to distribute. That each year averaged over 5 years is 3.7%. If we applied that to the $1.4 million we have this year, that would be $52,000. So each one of those, if we just carried on the way we were carrying on an average over 5 years, you'll see just exactly how much money of the current budget of 1.4% or 1.4 million you'd have to distribute. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Ron,
it's a good, I mean, it does.
It's a lot of data.
But it's a good point.
It's a good,
It's a good
I think it
point.
gives me what I was looking for was what our trend was over a period of time. So
you
you'll see that, let's go to domestic violence, 223. We've been given about a 25 or 20%, well, 18%, 17%, 14%, 10%, 13%. And now this year, if we compare to what we have to give, we would be giving 23.9% of the budget to that fund. Of course, these don't all add up to 100% because they're asking for more than The farm protection at 430 would be 35.7%. We've given an average over the last 5 years of about 25% of the entire budget to farm land protection.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, first of all, any questions, comments from the committee on this?
Mr. Chairman, this
Hope I'm
is
not
Bill
overwhelming
Leonard.
anybody.
Could I
Yes,
ask
Mr.
you a
Leonard?
question? Yes, I think your chart is very helpful, and I think it makes everyone recognize the fact that as the funds go down and the requests go up, the percentage of the money available goes up substantially. And that's why I think it is so important that we do keep some reserve money and not use very much of it each and every year, because what we're going to see, if in fact the revenues do go down, is that the request will be either the same or more, and therefore the percentage needed to satisfy their needs is going to be higher. So I think your chart's telling. The thing that we don't know is in 2022, whether or not the budgeted amount will be $1.4 million or $1.9 million or whatever. That's a guesstimate. And we won't know until the end of this year where that's going to be. But once we are at the end of the year, I think we'll have a very good idea that this chart shows us a trend that we have to be concerned with.
Good, that's exactly what I wanted it to do, is to give everybody a history of, is this even if they're asking for the same amount, like the tuition or the economic development, which is only asking for 20,000 a year. Is that what it was? Yeah, it still jumped it doubled, just the percent, even though it was a small percentage, 1% to 1.43%. 2.5 to 3.5% without even just asking for the same amount of money. So I think that helps us analyze that. And then Ms. Bates, did you have a comment or
Yeah,
a question?
so taking the average of these numbers, is that supposed to smooth out the requests or smooth it?
Well, that depends what we want to do with it.
Uh-huh.
That might indicate that if we were asked for 500,000 last year and we're asked for 900,000 this year, and we have half as much as we had last year,
Which brings
we
us,
need to take that into account.
which brings us back to the idea of mandates. And then.
Oh, maybe
and
you,
then-
I'm not sure, I haven't got that far yet. Mandates don't apply to me, I'm just trying to distribute money. If it's mandated, it isn't necessarily mandated. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe it's mandated to this committee necessarily,
Okay,
unless I'm wrong. Or as a committee, we're not responsible just because it's a mandate that it falls upon our shoulders.
Okay.
Maybe this is, what I was hoping to do was give us an idea with the categorizing of how important these are and how they're applied, how these applicants are applying for education, environment, economy, or need, which ones are the most valuable, just so we can make sure that we're sure that this is what we want to do, analyze them at a little deeper level. Because some are winners and some are losers, even though we had $2.938 million that we are proposing to give away, some of these are going to go down and they aren't all the asks that everybody wanted.
this may be outside of this committee to answer this question, but if there is a mandate and it doesn't get funded by this committee, then who funds it?
Good point.
The general fund, I
Request
think.
on our budget for.
Okay.
Yeah.
no, that-
Mr. Berger can answer that.
That's where the finance department comes in at.
Yeah.
No, it become,
It just has to
Well, and
affect the
actually-
general budget, right?
Our,
That may
our
be-
job here today, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, is to distribute the Riverboat funds.
Right.
That's our.
And
that's
it's
our-
solely up to us as a 5-member committee to decide. Eventually, it's going to go to the full board. So
Right,
they're really going to be the ones that decide. We're trying to weed through this thing, make sure that it's a logical application of the funds that we
We're making a
have.
recommendation to the. full
Recommendation to
board.
the board. Exactly right, Mr. Ford. You been on this committee before?
I have done this before.
Oh, my gosh, that's right. You act like an old pro. See, and this, part of this is my education and hopefully educating those of us that are new to the board, or new to this committee, understanding where we've been, where we are and where we're going, just maybe just to get a little better idea. So I feel more comfortable about if we do just do an omnibus thing and say, hey, this is great, just give them the money, then I want to know why it is we're giving them the money.
Mr. Chairman Ford,
Yes.
I really appreciate your chart. It's really great because it really explains that, what has happened over a period of, what, 5 years?
Yeah, I couldn't go back any farther. These were
Well,
figures from the
this is
applications.
pretty, this is really good
Yeah.
to go back 5 years and understand that the funds have went down tremendously, but the requests are going up.
Up.
So
So somebody,
we have to be careful about how we spend the funds. And I'm the one that said that we really need to look at holding on to some type of reserve for the fact that we want to be able to do this again next year.
I hope you don't get outvoted then, Mr. Ford.
Hey,
It is a committee, however. Is the need next year more than the need this year? I don't know. See, that's one of the questions we have to answer and hopefully give an educated idea to the board so that they can feel comfortable with having the decisions made. So then if we go to chart number D, and Mr. Berger, if any of these don't make any sense or I'm way off, out of whack on my analysis of this, can you please chime in?
We'll do that. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Because I know we didn't have a chance to go over this, and I apologize. As much, I know we had a discussion for quite a while, but like I said, I guess I do my best thinking, or maybe my worst at the middle of the night. So I go through this stuff. So if we went to chart D, which is actually just the form that was sent to us, up to the full, to the right-hand corner over there. This is just what Mr. Berger has sent us, Mr. Dahl has sent us for allotment of funds, I believe. New Riverboat funds. Yeah, in the blue, as he explained earlier, the blue is what they request. The green was what we recommended, and the white is my creation again. And I'll try and figure out what it is that, in this, the two columns, the accounts 120 and 407, which were the $20,000 a year, I've not put any figures in that because we've already agreed, and I figured we probably would agree, we're just going to roll that over and allow that to be spent as it is. Then if we took those 5-year averages that you saw in that table, that previous table from the bottom, and plug them into the total amount of the 5-year average, that's the total column in white. That's the third from the left over there. The 21,000 was recommended, or that would be if we multiplied what we had of the $1.4 million. We have times the average percentage of the amount we allotted over the last 5 years, except for, and you may notice that the 405-.715, the drainage, is actually an average over the last 4 years because it wasn't in, according to the application, it wasn't given in 2017. But that's an average of the last 4 years in there. So if we were to give those, the $21,000, and then the difference is the average we would have given them had we given the same amount we gave them over the last 5 years, $21,000, we would have given, say, 220. They're asking for 173. The difference is 151,950. I believe that's an 800% increase they're asking for. 800% more than what we would have given them last year using those figures. we would have given, if we gave them what we gave the average for the last 5 years, the difference is 151, that's 800% more. Hope I did that right. Just 220, account 220. It's the third line down. Or am I? Yeah. 220, it's the second line down.
Mr. Chairman? in
Yes,
looking
Mr.
at your
Leonard.
chart, thank you. I understand your percentage change. I think those might be off a little bit, but generally speaking, what you're saying is there's a tremendous increase in that one fund at 21,000. If you multiply that by 8, which would be 800,000, it would be about 168, 169,000. So it's probably 700 to 800,000. Your point is well taken, and I get it.
So you can see that, right, just to give us an idea of what it is we're at, what the applications, if we give the money out, is in relation to the current budget that we have, which was $1.4 million. That's from the, anything else above that is going to be taken from the Riverboat grant, or from the Riverboat Reserve.
Mr. Chairman, this is Strathman.
Yes, Ms. Strathman?
I think this chart is excellent. And I hope that the people who are making the ask have access to this chart so that they can see what a difficult process this was for us. You know, we'd like to give them all the money that they require or would like to have, but this may explain to them why that is not happening. Will this be available to them?
Sure, it's going to be online. This is being broadcast. But I can also provide it to them.
Yeah, I think that would be.
If we're, that way, yes, actually, I will make sure that they get it. Or actually, Mr. Berger, maybe you can. That way, if they have comments about it, that, like I've made any grievous errors, Ms. Mosser, oh, she's not here, might want to point it out. This was the way I used the figures to make a logical choice. Hopefully, eventually, we can make some logical choices on what we want to do with it, besides the overall spend or don't spend.
Mr. Chairman, Alan?
Okay, just one moment. Anybody else on the committee have any comments about this? Okay, Ms. Allen.
I'm sorry, I sure don't mean to butt in. These are great charts. Thank you for doing all of this homework. I have a question on State's Attorney 223 and 230. Do you see in the white column under projected unobligated fund balances that there's in 223 there's 160,000 and change?
Yes.
And in 230 there's 64,000 and change. I was just wondering if there was any reason why some of that money was not being pulled out.
I'm glad you asked. I'm glad you asked, Ms. Allen. Always good questions and good background. That's why it's good to have you, good institutional knowledge. I conversed via email with the gentleman that provided the application. And the reason that was stated was that, as you can see in Fund 221, the State's Attorney Drug Prosecution, they had a minus $4,000 balance. My impression of the response to my question, like why are we not using these funds, was that that he was concerned, that the State's Attorney's Office was concerned that there be a cushion in there to allow so that they don't go over and have that negative $4,000. You see that the third line down under projected unobligated fund balance is minus 4,000, which really shouldn't exist. It might have been due to contracts or some other, and an overall, it's not a very big thing compared to the overall budget, it's 0.5% or something, 2/3 of 1.5%. It's not very big, but still the idea is that we're mandated to have a balanced, and they're supposed to have a balanced budget as well, as we all are. That was the reason.
Oh, okay, thanks. I'm not sure I need 160,000 cushion or a $64,000 cushion. Can I mention one other thing?
Well,
The
just one
drug-
moment before can I finish on that one point that you brought up already?
Sure.
That my thought on that was that given that they had one account that was over $4,000, if we were to allow them $10,000 to carry over as a cushion, if that's the case that they needed a cushion in those accounts for whatever reason, that at least on the experience of account number 221, that would be more than adequate to cover a variance in what was going on, as opposed to $160,000. So I agree with you on that. And Ms. Allen, go ahead.
That's a great suggestion. I just wanted to mention also that the two, it seems like the state's attorney's office is entitled to some of this money because when the original grant was written, and Mr. Hoshite used to provide those every year. When the original grant was written, it was presumed that there would be people gambling who would have issues with gambling. So some of the money that the Riverboat, now remember, this is just the Elgin Riverboat, it's no other riverboat. The Elgin Riverboat would provide us money, and some of that money would be set aside to help people with gambling addictions and so on. In other words, the state's attorney would be given some funds to deal with the problems that came out of the gambling industry. And then over the years, that has grown to where the state's attorney's office is taking like maybe 50% of the internal money that we spend on ourselves. So it has been a substantial leap. And two of the largest items used to be the Child Advocacy Center and the drug court program. Now you'll notice that the drug court program took our warnings to heart, and they have gone looking for grant funding and wherever else they can get the money. So for the last 2 years, they haven't even come in and asked for anything. So I think that's an admirable protocol to follow, and I'm hoping that there will be others, especially in these COVID times when there's federal money being available, that instead of relying on our little riverboat fund, that some of these big programs can get grant money from other sources to fund themselves like the drug court has. Just a suggestion.
Yes, you have a wealth of knowledge. Thank you.
Not that wealthy.
That would go toward the need. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, this is Leonard. May I ask a question?
Leonard first, please. Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I was wondering, these charts that you did, could we get copies of these sent to us so we can study those to look at these initially and understand everything in there? Might be a bit complicated for some of us. And I'd like to have an opportunity, if we could, to study what you put together, all of the charts, so that we can look at those and then come up with an informed decision on what we want to do.
I think that would be excellent. I will certainly provide that. Yes, and it'll be the Excel spreadsheet so that you can manipulate the figures.
I just wanted to thank Ms. Allen for her comments about grant money. And I think even grants can sometimes be an unreliable source of income for these
Oh, yeah.
important programs.
Sure, you're absolutely.
I don't know who that was, but somebody blew up. Okay, good point. So, and actually that is a good point also about the ARP money, the recovery money. I have sent something to the finance director, but I haven't yet got a response. And I also contacted Mr. Sanchez, who's chair of the ARP committee. And Mr. Sanchez indicated that some of these may qualify for some ARP funding, which theoretically, and maybe you can correct me, Mr. Berger, would, if they would qualify for ARP funding, it might free up some money to use for those that don't qualify for ARP money. Does that sound like a reasonable thing?
That is correct.
So making a decision right away we might want to give this some thought because the ARP committee has just begin forming with their, they're just getting their guidelines together. So to rush to put this out might be, it might be premature to do something today. And it also gives the committee members a chance to go over these figures, because this is just a one man's thoughts as a member of the committee on these. I will point out, or is there, Mr. Ford?
Mr. Chairman Ford, I do recognize the first step that you did, I like where you did 120 and 407, because they were they were asking for any of the funds, they're just rolling over what they have. And I also do recognize that there are a handful of these requests that are very close to the funds that they need. So I don't know, we want to take a closer look at those, or?
Sure. Yeah, I think that we should just, in a moment, we'll,
Okay.
or actually, maybe we should do that. I wonder if there's, in this group of asks, those that might be more of a easy decision to make. So are you suggesting we start with like the lowest percentage?
Yes.
And maybe just work from that?
Yes. Well, the lowest difference between what they requested and what was recommended to them by the first round from this committee.
Okay, and so if we still work from table D,
Yes.
which is the same as, up to that, is the same as the sheet that was sent to us by Mr. Dahl, I believe. Except for it has the percentages in the last three columns, the calculations for percentages. And another note as well. So maybe we can do a couple of easy, and at least get a preliminary idea of what we want to be doing for the funding on this. If we started with number 405.715, water resources cost share drainage, that fund is to provide, is that okay? We start right there?
Yes.
Everybody else?
Yes.
That fund is to provide monies to distribute a loan and for usually low income, and actually Jody's here. Do you want to just give us a quick synopsis on what that one is as we go over it? And then maybe answer questions as well.
Certainly. Thank you, Chris. The cost share drainage program has been running since 1993. We do prioritize low-income neighborhoods for that funding, and as best as possible, we typically multiply the funding we receive from the Riverboat 4 to 5 times with our project partners, which includes our neighborhood folks that are living in the subdivision suffering from the drainage problems. Our township road districts have been great partners, as well as state grants that we've received to support that funding. As we've moved on and the Riverboat continues to decrease, our direct funding to residents has decreased as well. So many of our projects are funded through our operating cash, which is our cash balance in that fund. We provide loans out to communities that are paid back over a 10-year period through their SSAs. We also have contingencies in that fund, and we also operate our construction projects. So we are reimbursed by the project partners as those projects move forward.
So the $99,000 you're proposing to roll over is imperative to your program?
Correct. It's our operating cash on hand that we do have 2 pending loans for 2022, as well as 3 construction projects for contingency for that. And we will be funding the project partners portion of that out of there so that fund balance does bounce up and down over the year.
So on our averages that are providing a allotment of $99,000, 26,000 of it would come from, as proposed here, from the unobligated funds of last year, and 72,000 would be new funding. That would not allow you to then provide the same level of service, is that?
That's about $20,000 less than our request. So we would have to remove one of our construction projects from our scope of work for 2022.
And I'll just note that I think this is one of those that is asking for less anyway, right? Wasn't it a below?
That's correct.
below the-
It's approximately 55% of what we asked in the previous year.
So
Mr. Chairman, may I ask?
anybody on the committee have a question for Ms. Olnick? Then Ms. Bates?
Are those mandated projects?
No, they're not. They're local drainage projects. Our only mandated program is the Stormwater Management and PDS program, which is our riverboat, our river stream gauges that are used by all of our municipalities, as well as part of our MS4 permit requirement by the state of Illinois.
Thank you.
Back to mandates. So just to dig in on this one, of course, I'm kind of fond of environmental things. In order to keep the same level, and I think this is a great outreach to neighborhoods that can't afford to do the stormwater management on their own. And so it is good, it balances the economy with the environmental, which is helping with the water drainage and less flooding on that. And I would propose, well, I'll just let it go to committee. Any comments on that one? Is that okay if we discuss that one? We'll continue to discuss. Mr. Ford?
Yes, I just would, I understand with projects and the engineering part of it about what we'll be able to do and not do, but because of the limited amount of funds we have to work with, I wouldn't change the request, the uses of at-hand funds, because that can get spread out based on trying to get engineering done, which allows for more time for funds. But I would at least add to what's needed be to make it the 102.5, which is $3,500, I believe.
Well, it's only $3,000 difference.
Right.
Any other comments? My
Mr.
understanding.
Chairman,
Oh,
Strathman
go ahead.
here.
Strathman?
Yes, I agree with Mr. Ford on this. I think this program has put in a bare bones request, and it's serving the needs of people who are disadvantaged financially. And I would like to see them receive the full amount.
Well, their full ask is to not use any of their funds and to be appropriated $92,000 so that
To
they'd
keep
have
the contingency.
$102,000. Or
Right.
actually, they use 10,000 of it. Is that right? Am I on the right one? No, cost share drainage.
The $92,000 or the $99,000 that we have cash on hand is what we use out to loan out to folks, as well as construction contingency. The request is the $92,500.
Without using any cash on hand.
Well, we would be using the cash on hand as well as our new requested dollars of $92,500. So our total request for usage of funds for 2022 is $224,700. $694. So we're combining the 92,500 plus our cash on hand to get our operating expenses for 2022.
Mr. Chairman?
Well, I guess I don't understand it, but yeah, go ahead, Mr. Ford.
Yeah, I guess it's a little confusing because the list where this is listed under the 99,000 plus is under unobligated fund balance. So it's kind of hard to understand.
Would you would, if you were going to, yeah, I'm not sure I have a clear understanding of it either. If we allocated the 99,000 or the $102,000 even, but you have a balance that we don't put into the, if we allocated the 92.5 and 10 from the cash on hand, that'd leave you with $89,000. But you'd only be allowed to spend half of it. Is that correct?
Our request has a budget request of $224,000 for FY 2022. Of that amount, $100,000, basically half of that is going out the door for projects that are being built or engineered. The other half of that is going out to loans, contingencies, and operating funds to pay for our partners' share. So that's the amount that kind of bounces around over time. It's our operating cash for the program.
Okay. But if it's bouncing around and it's still in a unobligated fund balance, you have to come to the board to ask to spend it. Is that correct?
It's not, it's in our budget request. So I can't speak to the spreadsheet that's up there, but our budget request was for $224,000 for next year. That's on Exhibit C of our submittal.
Okay. Do you have I thought this would be an easy one.
I did too.
Mr. Dahl or Mr. Berger, can you put up the sheet that you sent us for in case I messed up on this sheet, the sheet that you gave us?
Yes, I will do that now.
Because I have 99,000 unobligated, 10,000 to be used, 92,000 to be additional money for a total of 102,000.
So I've just shared my screen. I think this is the information you're looking for. And I was just looking at the New World budget that was submitted for Fund 406. I believe $10,000 is the cash on hand amount, and the request for new funds is 92.5. Again, keep in mind that Fund 406 contains two programs, cost share as well as stormwater management. So I think Jody might be referring to the two programs combined.
Are you referring to both of them combined?
Yes, I think we're saying the same thing. The confusion is that $99,000 of the unobligated funds, which are actually used every program year, but the balance ends up all back in the pot at the end of the year. So that cash on hand fluctuates over the year as we're creating loan agreements with various partners for the project, as we're paying out the construction dollars for our construction projects. So to Scott's point, he's saying if it's unobligated fund balance, you can't touch it, whereas we use that fund balance every year.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Ford.
We might need to reconvene.
Well, we will have to reconvene at some point. As soon as I get hangry enough, I'll be.
I understand that, I worked in engineering for quite some time, and I understand when you're doing projects, you got to have that money where you got to roll over to get projects done. So the question really is this money totally designated right now for projects, or is it not? I think that's a question on hand.
We have two projects that are intention of having loans next year. So those are designated in the process right now, which would drop that unobligated fund balance by about $60,000.
Okay.
This past year, we're loaning out about $35,000 for one of our projects in Aurora. That goes back into that fund balance over the next 10 years as that loan is repaid.
And that one's a SSA, so that's where the monies get put back in there at?
Correct. Some of them are SSAs, but some of them like DCEO grant funding, we front fund some of those projects and then we're reimbursed. So we have to be able to pay our contractors and our engineers, and then we wait for that state or federal reimbursement.
All right.
So this is like working capital.
Correct.
which we,
Misnomer, that's
so,
unobligated.
so in my table D, where we had you, had this fund 405.715 with a budget of 211,000, 223,000 over the last 4 years. That included the $99,000 each year that's just rolling over?
No, it didn't. What we've been working closely with Scott Berger's office to try to accurately represent that amount that we've had on hand for basically since 1993. And as the Riverboat kind of progressed, we've kind of been moving it around where it would seem most accurate to try to explain this to the committee. And so it wasn't reflected last year. That was one of the reasons I jumped up at the meeting to try to explain that again. So if anyone has any suggestions on how to better accurately represent this using operating cash, I would certainly be open to that suggestion. So it doesn't keep showing up as unobligated fund balance, because we're actually using that every year as money comes in and goes out.
Could you set up another fund so we don't ever see it?
I would defer to Scott Berger for that, for accounting transparency.
Good answer.
About that, Mr. Berger? You're on the spot.
Well, I'm afraid
Mr.
there's,
Chairman,
I think as long as we know about it.
Yeah, well, as long as we calculate it, if we give, we're saying that you can use, on our estimates here, we're saying you can use 26,000 of it, or 27,000 of it as part of the money for this year, and we'd be only giving you $72,000, which you're requesting $92,000.
Correct, about, yeah. So
So-
we would have to drop one of our construction projects for 2022.
So we would have to decide whether we want to cut this construction project
Yeah.
or drop it. So that's the tough decisions we have to make.
So in reality, they're looking for the whole 19.5 from us. And I think,
They're looking for, I'm sorry, Mr. Ford, it was what? 92.5?
right, but so I'm still trying to get a clear understanding. So from the request that came from us, the first round, we had 26.8 of their cash flow that they needed to use. And then in this chart that we have today, the request use of on-hand cash is 10,000. So that's a great fair compromise. And I'm just saying that if we just make up the difference of the make up the difference with their amount to somehow compromise the 26.8 to so we give them their full amount with them. That's my thought.
I'm not sure I understand it. Your thought?
Well, we had 26.8, and she's saying that they're saying that they need most of that really
They need
all of it. They need all of it.
None of it should come out of there.
Right,
according-
none of it
If
should
we
come out of
want to
there.
keep the program as it is with the projects they have, they already have 2/3 of it committed. Then we can't take any out of that.
So what I'm saying for conversation right now, not saying it would stay that way. I mean, we make a
Yeah.
compromise between the 10,000 and the 26, and then fill in the rest of it for now, just for conversation, and then maybe come back to it when we go through the rest of them, see what we end up with.
Yeah, this is going to be
Mr. Chairman?
rotating through the thing there. Yes, Ms. Strathman?
It seems to me that the 99 needs its own column to be clearer. And I understand the need for transparency, but I think that that Jody has explained it. And I totally get it why she needs that reserve. So I think that to give her, to let that be set aside for the contingencies that she never knows. And it is a fund that is regenerated as people pay back the loans and whatnot.
So in order to maintain your programs, you need 102,500 or 92,500?
92,500. And if I understand Mr. Ford's suggestion is that we would just reduce our operating cash by 16,000. So we would then use that additional out of the fund balance to make up the $20,000 that's different. And we could operate that way next year,
Okay.
if that's a reasonable compromise.
Just for now, I mean,
Okay.
it could change, it could get better, so.
So in our green area, you're talking about use of cash on hand.
Going up to 26, well, actually, if you wanted to fund the full amount, it would be
Well, we're gonna
closer
compromise.
to 20, 30.
And that would lower your 99, but
It would lower my 99, but it would keep all the construction projects.
so you would lower your 99, we would kick in, the committee would kick in the 72 too from the current funds? Is that correct?
Or we would increase it enough,
Right.
Increase it to get to the 102,
5, yes.
which is like, makes it 75,000. Mr. Dahl, are you taking notes? Or are we on our own here?
No, I'm taking minutes. And I think Tracy is probably making corrections to the spreadsheet.
Okay. Oh, is she? Would we see that then? Or you're not looking at mine?
If you give us a minute, we can
Okay. Why don't you, can you do
make
that?
some
That'd be
changes
great.
for you. Hang on just a second. So my understanding is that you want to increase Jody's ability to spend a total of $102,500 during the year. Is that correct?
Right. That way she can keep her program as pretty close to the, just not quite as much cushion.
Oops, I didn't get that quite right.
Mr. Chairman, Alan,
Yes, Miss Allen?
I'm sorry to butt in, but this program has been reducing the amount that it asks for every year while still trying to do projects that help the people who live in the county. I would just ask that you give Jody what she asked for of new riverboat funds of $92,500. That way she gets to do the programs that she's planned for this year, and she's still asking for less than she's asked for in previous years.
Good
Yeah.
sound comment.
The other part of my,
Oh,
Mr. Chairman Ford, the other part of mine was to compromise between the 26.8 and the 10,000, which, somewhere around 15 to 16,000. So our increase would be more than the,
then just 3,000.
right.
So if we lower the contingency or the amount on
Request of use of cash on hand.
cash on hand to 10,000, did you say, or
16, let's say.
16? So that would kick another additional 10,000.
Yes, 10,800.
So then, 16, then we'd have to be allotting 85. To get to the 102,
Yes.
and that gives you a little more cushion.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Are you wanting us to make changes to the spreadsheet as you discuss this?
The least we can do. I'm sorry, Mr. Berger, go ahead.
I was just asking, do you want us to make these changes to the spreadsheet as you discuss these items? How
It
can we
would
help
be
you?
fine with me. That way we don't get confused about where we've been.
Yes.
Any objections from the rest of the committee? Or anybody else that's here eating candy bars? Or I'm sure
I've
healthy.
been sitting in this chair a very long time.
Tell me about it.
That's
Yeah, I
a
know.
choice.
That's right. We won't go there. And happy to be doing that, just that. I'm so happy to be here.
Hey, that's right.
Yeah.
This is it, yes. I'm so happy to help. That's the idea. Thank you, I think, but yes, thank you for right now.
Thank you.
Okay. Then, let's see, Farmland Protection Program is 108%. That's pretty close to last year. Shall we discuss that? If we're working on a percentage way. Mark's getting ready for questions. You think there'll be questions? And the way I interpret this is that they have an ask of 500,000. Our compromise collection is 390,000.
Mr. Chairman, this is Leonard. Could I ask a question?
Yes, sir, Mr. Leonard.
I was wondering with the category that we're looking at now, the farmland protection, and I believe that whatever monies we give to them, they're matched by the federal government, but I'm not 100% sure. But if I remember correctly, I think that's how it works. So I know that that number is a high number, but if they're getting a dollar back for every dollar we grant them, it's a worthwhile thing. So we may want to just confirm that before we make any decisions on it.
Sure, yes, I'm Mark Van Kerkhoff, and absolutely can confirm that. This is, I think, the only Riverboat request that actually doubles the money that's allocated to it. Traditionally, this has always been used to match federal dollars that come to the state of Illinois from the federal government for farmland protection easements, and we are the only county that has a program. So if we don't use it, the money goes away from the entire state. So that's been the foundation of the program over the years. This year, the reason the request went up from 300,000 to 500,000 from last year is because we have responded to the Riverboat Committee's request to find more funding resources for the easement program. So we're actually beginning the first year of a new 5-year grant program in addition to the other federal funded program that we need a match for. And this is going to accelerate not only the farmland protection easements, but this new program has built-in requirements for soil nutrient runoff and conservation controls in addition to those easements. So it's a long way of answering your question, Mr. Leonard, but yes, this money is doubled by the grant resources that we have. And if we aren't able to match them, then we aren't able to match them.
Yeah. I apologize for chuckling a little bit. I can't avoid the irony of us telling you to go find money elsewhere, so you ask us for more to go find money somewhere else. Is there an irony there? Am I missing something?
And what's the doubling aspect that's unique?
Yeah. Yeah,
And the long-term investment.
yes.
Is there a maximum you can request from, or get reimbursement for, or matching for?
Well, that's the other change in the baseline federal programs. It used to be that we could apply for those funds without having the match allocated, but they've changed the rules in Washington DC again, and the money has to be in the account and already allocated for the funds. There's been a few changes in the whole farmland protection program. So if the money's not allocated in there, we can't even put in the farmland protection application.
And it has to be $500,000 or?
Well, that's our current match with the new program, as well as what we're anticipating from the traditional match that comes to Illinois from the federal easement program.
And the $390,000 would exclude you from matching, or this is just?
No, it would just mean that we would be able to match less. So, I mean, if you look, that would be $110,000 less that we could bring into the county from the grant program that we've already been approved for. So we'd be forfeiting $110,000 coming to the county to purchase easements.
Right. That we never had anyway, but we're forfeiting it?
No, the grant's been approved. The budget
Oh.
for that grant program has been approved.
Oh, my gosh. I guess the concern I have is that it is a whopping 25.8% of the amount of money. Is that correct, if I'm right? In my table?
Pretty good investment.
I think that your, according to your chart, is 25.8.
My chart, yeah.
Yeah.
Which has a little asterisk that hopefully it's correct. I believe it is.
We have a total of 1.4 million that we're talking about?
Well, we have an allotment from the gambling, or from the boat fund, excuse me, this year of 104 million, 1.4 million remaining. But we don't, we can't, anything above that would come from our $3.3 million reserve.
Right.
So if we want to keep in budget of 1.4 million, this would be 25.8% of that allocated amount.
It's
And
got
it's
to be
just
more
a
than
relative
that.
term.
It's more than that.
It's just a relative.
Somebody do the math. It's more than a third.
Well,
500,000
That's
is,
20, that's a quarter.
500,000 is more than a third of,
No.
It's about 34%.
Yeah,
yeah,
35.71.
thank you. I do
Yeah.
that in my head.
Well,
That is a third,
oh,
dumb lady.
Of the 1.4 million.
It's.
oh, I'm
30.
sorry. I'm working backwards. You're right. It's more than, you're right. It is. It's like 30%.
I do stuff like that. in my
Right.
head.
I'm working on the chart that I did, that the 25% is the average that it's been receiving
Mhm.
over the last,
But 500,000 of
5 years.
1.4 is more than,
if we take,
it's like a third.
right, if we take the average of the
Oh my gosh.
money that we've given, of the money that we have available, it's 25.8%. So if we multiply that times, to be consistent, over the last 5 years, we've given an average of our budget of 25%.
Right.
Okay.
So if we're consistent and give it an average of our budget of $1.4 million, it'd be 361,000. So if they're asking for 500, it would be well over 25.8%.
Okay.
Sorry, I got,
And to their requests over the last 5 years, their number has came down tremendously, because it started off in 724 down to 718. So now they're down to 500,000.
yeah, the only problem is that it has gone from 27% of the budget
Right.
to
exactly.
35% of the budget
Exactly.
on their ask, the 500,000. Oh, that's the number right above there. Yeah, 35.71%. Good math. Good catch.
Excuse me,
Smarter than
Mr.
the average
Chairman.
bear.
Kidneys. Mr. Leonard.
Yes, I just wanted to point out that I'm not really as concerned with the percentage historically on this. What I'm concerned with is, what will the county get by contributing from the Riverboat funds somewhere between 390,000 and 500,000? And what we will get is an additional amount equal to whatever we agree upon. And there's no other fund right now that we're looking at that is going to match funds. So, yes, you are correct. It would be about 35% of the money we have available, but then add that 500,000 we're getting from the federal government back into it, and that bumps it up to from $1.4 million to $1.9 million, and then take that percentage and you're back around your 26, 27%.
It's a good.
Well, yeah, but we don't, it's not like you get a Kohl's cash you can go and buy more stuff with.
It's absolutely that way.
They're loading it on the front, so we get more land, but
Mhm.
It
It's not
depends
like-
what the request is going to be next year.
not like, it's not like the Child
Chairman.
Advocacy Center gets
Is it-
that extra $200,000
Yeah.
or whatever the difference
Mr.
is
Chairman,
to help the children.
yeah,
I'm sorry, I'm being a devil's advocate.
yeah.
I told you when I get hungry, we're in
I
trouble.
hear you. Ford
Oh,
here, I think in this case, what it was, Leonard's getting at is we're getting more bang for our buck. And that's something we got to take in consideration when we look at the percentage. It's just something to think about. I don't know, we can increase it all the way up to the 500. Maybe we pick another number in between just for second conversations. For right now, we did say that we're going to probably be doing another round, but if we want to just continue with the discussion.
Well, let's just do a little poll here. I'm pretty comfortable with the 390. I apologize for not wanting the extra federal money.
That's fine.
Let's see if we can get a consensus sort of on this one. The 390? You'd like-
For conversation right now, I'd be willing to compromise somewhere between a 390 and a 500. Like another
391?
Mr. Chairman Strathman,
392, 5. No.
I agree with the 390 right now.
Okay, and then Mr. Leonard,
Mr. Chairman, I would agree with Mr. Ford. I would like to get a little bit more. I could accept 390, but if we could split the difference and go with about 450,000, it means another 50, 60,000 to Kane County.
Mr. Berger, you have a comment?
No, I forget it.
No, I want to hear it.
Well, I
You
don't.
started, you're not going to get out of that easy.
Well, this is a great program. And we got a lot of great programs. And it's nice to have a matching grant. But, is that the difference, another $50,000 that we could give to some other program, which we think is necessary and needs this year? The money we're going to put in farmland, we're not spending this year necessarily.
I got 3 say that 390 and 2 say more. So we'll go with 390 for right now, just for discussion.
For discussion.
Just for
right.
discussion.
We're just trying to move through.
We'll all get together. This won't be virtual. We can go fisticuffs
Yeah.
later.
What we're trying to do
Is
today
move it along.
is just move it along.
Yeah, just move
Yes.
along project. So that's got an asterisk.
Our meeting has gone for about 2 hours now, and
Yes, Mr. Chairman,
It's late
question?
already.
I'm.
Yes? Mr. Rathman?
Yes. Do you see us doing the rest of the meeting, going through every item today? Or are we going to
No,
come back at a fresh moment and
I
put our
think
heads
we should-
together again?
If we could just top off a few and then if there's any questions, then I don't see going through the whole thing. We'll be here till 8 o'clock tonight from the first 2.
yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, Mr. Ford.
Yeah, my suggestion was just pick a handful of them. I think there's only like 2 or 3 more left.
And
That's
yeah,
very close to the,
well, I thought that would work easy, but sure. Okay, so that would be,
like the recycling
we
program.
did 45, 75, 715 and the land 430, right?
Yes.
And as well as 120 and 407. Your suggestion is something closer, like
The environmental.
economic development, which
I was
is
wrong the first time, so I could be wrong.
118%. That's closer. Should we go on that? So about the 8th line down, development, 400, economic development. Unprojected balance, 22. They don't want to use any of that. They want 80,000. We're suggesting 12,000 be used for cash on hand, 58,000. So the allotment would be 70.9 thousand. Any questions on that? You have a elevator speech on that one?
No, well, this is the fund that both the Jobs Committee and the Agriculture Committee has been able to use to be very agile and flexible and responding to opportunities like the export grant matching program that we did for a number of years, and then mostly recently this spring with the grants that we provided to our local food growers. Our Compere grant provided us $10,000. We had such an outstanding response from our local food growers that we're able to use the economic development funds budgeted for that purposes to provide additional grants to a total of 25 local growers. So the budget builds in that flexibility for both those two committees to be responsive to that. So a decrease in the amount just decreases the flexibility.
Not good,
So
not as good. Okay, well, I'm okay with the 70 or 71,000 approximately. Comments? That's a consensus. You
Yeah.
paused that long.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, Ron.
No, I'm
Just bring
agreeing.
some sugar.
I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
So that's one out of the way there. On that. Man, there's just too much good stuff here. Let's give them all everything.
The recycling program, I believe Mr. Ford mentioned, and we can pare down the green guide, so we have no issue with the 61,000.
61,000 and then use 17 that you got from not doing the green guide last year. So you would be at 78.4.
Perfect.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you ever so much. They're just,
Environmental is really nice.
they're just great. I like environmental. I think we ought to give them all. Oh, no, did I say that out loud?
That's because it
I apologize.
comes out of the sun. Oh. All right.
State's Attorney Drug Prosecution. We lost our state's attorney. Oh, okay. Elevator speech? Oh, you're my guy. I'm sorry, your name was?
Joe Krantz.
Say it in the microphone if you would.
Joe Krantz.
Yes, Joe, thank you.
For drug prosecution, we're going this month to the finance committee to get a $50,000 loan because we're short on cash.
Yeah. Okay. Anything on the program as far as the 142,000? We're suggesting 85,000.
I don't know where we'd make the cuts.
I don't know either. I'm not sure where we're making cuts.
Mr. Chairman, this is Leonard. May I make a comment?
Yes, absolutely, Mr. Leonard. Please.
You know, with the drug prosecution, I think what this gentleman is suggesting is what every department's going to suggest either this year, next year, or the year after that, that if they don't get the monies they need, they don't know where they're going to get it from. That's the problem with us funding operational expenses. So I think we have to be careful with what we do here.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
Yes. Comments from other members? Anything? Actually, that's how you win a lot of arguments, is just wear everybody completely down. And I can't stand it. Yes, I'll do anything.
The only other one I really want to bring up.
Okay, are we okay with 221 though, the way it is? I apologize for not giving you and going so fast on that, but, okay, the only other one you wanted to
Really, I'm sorry,
dig into?
is the, make sure it's the water resources, the other part of the
Environmental,
Stormwater management.
water resource, stormwater management.
Right.
That is Miss Ivy. Thank you for your time. Thanks for coming in.
Hi, everybody. That's the MPDES MS4 permit program.
And your name is?
Ivy Clee. Resource Management Coordinator.
Thank you.
Mhm. So this is a mandated program by the state of Illinois, the National Pollution Discharge Elimination System for MS4 permit. And last year, I believe that I wasn't here last year, but we had agreed to reduce the contract amount for 1 year. However, they stated that they would not be able to do that this coming year. And we have 5 USGS stream gauges, and we do not want to lose one of those.
So you would need the $67,535 to maintain that.
Ideally, yes, but we can do 64,000.
There
we go.
And bartering here. What we have with those stream gauges is that we have a wealth of knowledge accumulated from all of those gauges over a number of years. And if we drop that, we lose the consistency in the data collected on our water resource
Yes.
information as far as planning and a historic
So
roadmap.
the
up to this point.
gauges, the stream gauges are used to monitor the rain and stream levels during storm events. And they also collect data for computer modeling of floodplains. So they are very important.
And again, it wasn't very much of an increase. So water resources, 64.
Right.
Going once, going twice. Anybody object to that? 64.
Mr. Chairman, no objection. This is Leonard. I
Thank you,
would
Mr. Leonard.
just like to say that I'd be happy to agree to that amount if that's the last item we're going to cover today.
Okay,
Yes.
all right.
Yes.
Love this. I like to run I hate meetings go long, don't you?
Well, it's 2 hours.
Except when you run it. Yeah, that's long enough. The brain can only stand absorb what
When they started
something
late.
like that, yeah.
2
Yeah, we started
hours,
late
we
anyway,
started late,
right.
so-
Yeah, I'm getting hangry. I
Chairman, can I-
appreciate your time for this. Mr. Berger, can we?
Yes, I just want to clarify,
Reese?
did you want me to alter the number 60,428,
Yes.
To 64,000,
64,000 even?
yes.
Okay, I've done that. I'm no longer sharing my screen.
Okay. Do we don't have to come to a conclusion today. Can we just
Oh,
do a
So we do
adjournment?
we do
or
need you
a-
to make, we do need you to make a recommendation that we can carry forward to the full county board.
By what time?
We were hoping you'd do that today.
Yeah, we were too.
Are you suggesting that you'd like to reconvene at a later date?
Yes,
Yes.
that's what my committee is telling me. We had a
Then
rough
we just
start
need
this
you-
morning.
We just need to let you know when you'd like us to schedule a meeting.
Do we need to adjourn and reschedule another one, or can we just,
You may certainly adjourn if you'd like. We'll just look to you to give us some guidance regarding your next meeting.
well, we have all of our committee members here right now. Let's see what we can devise. It has to be at least 48 hours from today. Is that correct?
Correct. The earliest you could meet would be Monday.
Monday. Ruin a perfectly good day.
And I won't be in town Monday, but
Tuesday, can you do,
you think we can make it just before, because we have committed a whole.
we also have Forest Reserve Finance at 2. Can we meet at 12:30 or 12 or 12:30 on Tuesday?
That would be all right.
And then we'd have to be done by
2.
2 because we'll have Forest Reserve Finance over at the
Right, we're gonna
other
be over
place,
there.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that'll give us time to work on the digest the,
You bringing lunch? You're the chair.
I think that's an excellent suggestion. I wouldn't want to do anything that would be opposed by the committee, but it would be like, what's your favorite meal?
Food.
There's some in the back, I think, but I think it's been there a while.
Slightly healthy.
Yeah, slightly healthy. Something like Jimmy John's or something?
There you go.
Well, I'll-
12:30 on Tuesday?
12:30 on Tuesday. Okay, well, and then I will entertain a motion to adjourn until
So moved.
12:30 on Tuesday and with lunch provided here at the chamber. Is that okay with you, Mr. Berger?
Yes, that is fine. Thank you.
I apologize. I wish we could go through this. My committee's starting to fail on me.
Too much
Leonard
passion.
moves to adjourn.
Rebelling.
It's not failing, just too much passion to do the right thing.
Did I hear Leonard moved?
Strathman seconds.
Strathman second? All in favor?
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, everybody.